Joyride, 1957, a novel of intrigue by J.P. Wasmiller, Chapter 71. The clock rolled around 11 p.m. and the black-haired nurse's shift came to an end. She gave a report to the nurse coming on duty, then walked by the ER. She saw Dr. Duran leaning over a 40-something man complaining of chest pain, and then just dodged an orderly-driven cart carrying a young man with a bloodied face and a right leg in a splint. She looked down and knew there would be no lovemaking tonight. She went out into the cool Montana air, got in her blue and white 1957 Nash Rambler Metropolitan convertible, which ground a few times before starting. She then drove slowly home where her husband would be snoring loudly and she would fall asleep on the couch with the radio blaring Blueberry Hill or some such song. The nurse who came on at 11 and was responsible for James' care checked him over carefully and then left the room to care for her other two ICU patients. She had been alerted that she would be receiving at least one and maybe two more patients in ICU and went about readying the last two of the 6 ICU rooms in St. Peter's Hospital. Soon another man entered the ICU. He was the hospital chaplain and was based out of the Cathedral of St. Helena, a massive neo-Gothic church not far from the hospital. The nurse noticed him and waved. He went into James' room. The nurse wondered why he was here so late, but was busy readying rooms as the other ICU nurse had been called to the ER. He gave his blessing to the comatose James, then sat in a bedside chair and carefully surveyed the room. He noticed a black suitcase under James' bed. He wanted to look through it, but thought better of it. He loosened his white collar slightly as the room was very warm and also poorly lit. The endless repeating hiss of the respirator amazed him. His sweating now became profuse, and he noticed his hands shaking, but he had his orders. He could not disobey his superiors, who ultimately represented a world power and 1 billion people. He stood and located the power cord of the respirator where it was plugged into the wall socket. He looked around further and saw no one. Reached over and unplugged the respirator. The hissing stopped, but the beep of James' EKG monitor continued. He then slipped out of the room, waved goodbye to the nurse, and exited the ICU and the hospital walking as slowly as he could. He got into his red 1957 Chevrolet four-door sedan and drove straight west onto US Highway 12. He would drive straight to Seattle, Washington, and from there catch a flight to Rome, Italy. Within about 5 minutes, the orderlies rolled a cart into the ICU with a man with a bloodied face now filled with stitches and a cast on his arm. The man kept yelling epithets and trying to break his restraints as several orderlies and nurses worked to transfer him to his ICU bed.